Finovate showcases cutting-edge banking and financial technology through a global conference series featuring short-form demos and thought leadership. Now, the conversation continues on the Finovate podcast.
Thanks for tuning into the Finovate podcast. This is Greg Palmer. As many of you are, I'm sure, aware, we recently wrapped up Finovate Europe in Berlin. It was our first time going to that city, and it was really exciting for us to be someplace new, and the energy was really fantastic. And I wanted to start to highlight some of the best of show winners from that event. We had 6 companies who were recognized by the audience as being the top innovations on display, and we're going to feature all of them on the podcast over the next few weeks, starting today with W.U.P. Let's turn it now over to the interview with Tamas. Joining me on the podcast today, we have Tamas Braun, the sales director of W.U.P. W.U.P. is one of the companies that just won Best of Show at Finovate Europe 2020 in Berlin. It is actually their 3rd Best of Show at Finovate Europe in a row. They've completed the hat trick now, which is no small feat. Tamas, thank you for joining me on the podcast today. Can you start with just a quick overview of what W.U.P. is all about?
Yes, Greg, certainly. Thank you. At W.U.P. here, we're a bunch of people who came from another digital banking startup that got acquired by a large British financial technology company about 5 years ago. And now we started W.U.P. after that to focus on helping banks to unleash the power of data, especially real-time data, for the ultimate goal to serve customers better. And that's what we want to do. Now, to serve them better, of course, they need to be understood better. And Greg, I don't know, I'm 42. I still remember when banking used to be very personal. So branch managers knew their customers, they knew their life circumstances. Heck, even sometimes they knew even their pet names, right? And now, because of the advent of digital banking technology, this has changed. Banking lost that personal touch. They're using digital banking for transactions. And to put it in one sentence, at W.U.P. here, we want to put that personalization back into banking using, of course, technology.
It's something that I think you've been very successful at least according to the Finovate audience, who obviously enjoys what you're working on. And one of the things that has been really fun for us is to watch some of those demos. And you do a good job of making them engaging in a way that shows off your technology. And for anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, you should check out their videos at finovate.com/videos, starting with the mannequin challenge they used to kick off their demo back in 2017. And the mannequin challenge, I think, may no longer be culturally relevant, but it was an engaging way to start. But let's start by talking about the tech behind it, though, because you've come a long way in helping banks to identify their customers' unique characteristics and preferences and telling them what to do about them. Why is that individual approach to banking so important? Or to put it in perspective, what you were just talking about, what have we lost when we kind of moved away from that personalization?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we lost is building relationship with customers in the level which used to be the case. So knowing what customers need to solve their problems proactively, to predict and forecast certain situations and be ahead of their time to propose a solution. I think this is what has been lost in banking due to branches closing down or people not going to branches. But in order to be successful in this, of course, banks need to understand customers' life events, bigger life events, but also smaller everyday spending habits, which has effect on everyday banking. And what I think seems to be the case is that banks have been blindly selling products to certain demographics of customers using a kind of a spray and pray technique. And of course, a lot of the banks have moved beyond that, but this is what we're helping banks to do that differently, or to do something differently to achieve a much better, much meaningful, relevant interaction with customers. And in order for them to do that, of course, mining data for new signals is extremely important. They need to get better at using data to turn insights into interactions. And finally, to deliver value to customers. I think that is the point why banks need to do this, to deliver valuable interactions to customers which help them live a better financial life.
Yeah, and I think before we actually got on the call, you were talking about a report that you had read from McKinsey with some really compelling data, talking about exactly how big the benefits are for banks that engage with this, personalization and trying to engage their customers in that way. Can you share that with us?
Indeed, I mean, there are numerous research by McKinsey and other companies on the actual tangible benefits of using personalization. And of course, one of the most obvious one is the actual marketing efficiency. It could give you a 10 to 20% more efficient marketing strategy. There are cost savings aspect to this as well, of course, because you have a much better targeted proposition, which is hyper personalized. So you spend less on marketing, but your offers are hitting the right target audience. And of course, there is another side as well, that is a 10 to 30% uplift sometimes in revenue and retention, which is the real big money paying for this whole party.
Yeah, I mean, revenue and retention, I think, is certainly something which every bank would say, 10 to 30% lift. Yes, sign me up. But this
Exactly.
brings me to an interesting point because, when you first came to Finovate in 2017, your product was called Sales Up, and it's kind of shifted now with something that's sort of less directly salesy, less kind of customer centric in a salesy standpoint, and more of a comprehensive platform that you demoed at Finovate Europe 2020. There's still a strong sales component there. There's a strong benefit to financial institutions from a marketing standpoint, but you sort of shifted the focus onto really getting to know as much as you can about the customers. Can you talk a little bit about what drove that change and how that evolution came about?
Yeah, Greg, that's a very good observation. Indeed, we have gone through this evolution, so to speak, in the company, where we have taken the view that financial institutions need to think much more holistically about the role they play in their lives of their customers. They need to pay attention to financial well-being of their customers. Potentially, there are areas which are not in the scope of selling products or pushing banking products to customers, but advising them, guiding them on how to lead their financial lives. There are areas in sustainable banking, which is a hotly speaking topic nowadays, how to inform and educate your customers about carbon footprint, how much impact they have on the environment when they go about in their lives. Because of course, every aspect of our life, nearly every aspect of our life, everything we do leaves a financial footprint, and the bank has access to that data. And if they can leverage that data smartly, then there are use cases like sustainable banking, which they can do to educate customers better on the topic. So this holistic approach is what we developed in the last few years, and that is what's changed from a sales-driven platform to a much more wider scope of personalization. And we did that because we have a view that financial institutions are going to move into that bigger part of customers' life.
It really, I think, gets to one of the fundamental challenges of fintech right now, which is that, right, there's a lot of products which are aimed at banks where banks are actually the ones who would pay for them, but the end user, the customer, is the one who needs to be engaged. And obviously, you're not asking for money from those people; you're asking for time from those people. And balancing the needs of banks and the needs of the end customers is a really tricky challenge for a lot of companies in fintech. How do you guys look at that problem and look at where that balance should be?
Yeah, I mean, it is tricky indeed, Greg. And we're hoping to work with our partners and clients who have the view that this should be the one and same thing. Hopefully, there are banks out there who understand that if they deliver value to their customers, if they do things to the benefit of their customers, then on a medium long term, this is going to impact their bottom line in a positive way as well. That is the ideal scenario. But of course, as you said, there are institutions and organizations where they need to meet their quarterly KPIs, they have quarterly targets, and in a lot of banks, governance is structured in a way that product departments are still making decisions and they're driving agenda in the banks. And in some cases, this is difficult to align to customer experience or customer satisfaction. So this is a challenge, but we have a view here that banking needs to become more embedded in customers' personal lives in all aspects, because banking itself or banking services themselves will become embedded into other experiences in life. And if the banks can do this, then they are going to be the leaders in the industry who can basically strike out or raise out of this industry and be leaders in them.
I certainly think there's a growing awareness of exactly what you're talking about here. And I think there's a growing desire among banks to kind of be on the forefront here and really starting to understand what their customers are doing, what their customers want from them. And it's really heartening to see. We've got just about a minute left, and I'd like to switch gears and come back to the demo strategy, because this is a really fun thing for me to talk about. This is, as I said, your third straight best of show win at Europe, and you clearly understand the audience well. And also, it's obvious that you put a lot of effort into thinking about how to do that 7 minutes up on stage. Can you talk about the strategy, the thinking that goes on before you actually start your 7 minutes up there on the Finovate stage?
Certainly. I mean, if you have not been to Finovate as a demoing company, you probably don't know how much effort it goes into that 7 minutes. It's rehearsal. But other than that, there is a whole big team behind the scenes working on the demo script and how we need to visualize certain things and how we need to precisely explain sometimes very, very complicated and complex things in a matter of seconds and focus on the areas which can grab attention from the audience. That is a really hard thing to do. So that is sometimes, as you quoted, Greg, we come up with ideas like the mannequin challenge, which was to showcase how some of the banks have the desire to pause time, to stop time, so they can analyze the behavior of their customers. They can figure out what needs to be proposed to them or what interaction they need to do with those customers. But unfortunately, what we wanted to highlight in the demo is that the reality is that people will not stop in their lives for banks to analyze them. People will go on about their lives, and banks will need to have the technology to be able to do this in real time in an automated way. And this is basically what W.UP is about, to help banks to unleash the power of that real-time data and help with those personalized interactions. It all hopefully shows in the demos, and we like to believe that why people voted for W.UP as best of show is because it comes through and they understand the point.
Yeah, no, certainly. And I think this is one of the things where, and that bell obviously means we're out of time, but just to put some closing thoughts here, a lot of companies come to Finovate and they think, I want to do something engaging. I want to do something that's a little bit outside the norm. And one of the things I think that sets you apart is that you do those things that are engaging, but you do them strategically. You use something like the mannequin challenge, which is silly and frivolous and was blowing up the internet a couple of years back. And you use it to showcase something, this idea that banks wish that time could stop. And obviously that's not possible. And so we have to, push forward in kind of an ever-changing real-time scenario. But for anybody who's listening, thinking about how they want to structure their own demo, that's the really crucial piece. At least it looks like it is to me. The idea that whatever you do has to be done strategically. It has to be done because of a large message you're trying to get across. And if you're able to marry those well, you can have something that's fun and engaging that ultimately ends up supporting and underlining that core value proposition. So, well, Tamas, thanks again for joining me on the call. Congrats again on your third best of show. Hopefully you and the team have had some time to celebrate. And I look forward to seeing you again at Finovate the next time around.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you for having me.
The Finovate podcast is produced by Informa Connect in association with Provoke.fm Media. Check out Finovate.com for information on Finovate's upcoming shows and to learn how you can get involved. The discount code Finovate Podcast will save you 20% on tickets to all of our events. And you can email us at info@finovate.com for information on sponsoring, speaking, or demoing. Thanks for listening.